but I will welcome you and say hello after a lovely morning session, which we had with really excellent presentations about VR and AR productions. We want to, in this afternoon session, go a little bit deeper, talk about how it works, what is needed for theater people to understand, to use immersive technologies, what kind of technology is needed in a theater company, where is knowledge to find. All this will be shortly in 7 pitches bring closer to you, and then you will have the possibility, as Johanna just said, to go with our speakers into talks in smaller groups. And now the host of this afternoon, I want to introduce you to Marianne Urso, Professor of Interactive Media at the University in York, UK. Hello, Marianne, start it.
Well, thank you
please.
very much, Doug, and welcome everybody if you are coming back, and hello if you're here for the first time. Doug made, I think Doug made you feel guilty for those who have not attended the morning session. It's really fantastic, but we have fantastic work to follow. We'll start this session today with a keynote by Catherine Allen from the UK, who will explain to us what audiences expect and what audiences want from virtual reality and immersive experiences. We'll have 10 minutes for questions and answers with Catherine, and then as already said, we are going to move into a kind of very fast firing line with short and sharp presentations. And let me read some of the topics to you such that you will stay engaged and be excited to hear them. For instance, they include using Peppers Holosuite to build mixed reality setups on stage, using binaural, underwater and 3D recordings to place the audience at the very center of a fictional narrative, and also a presentation of the Mercurius net app to deliver such experiences into people's homes, location-based AR to challenge the line between reality and fiction, and virtuality and physicality, the use of AR glasses in Europe's first AR performance with live actors, audiovisual poetry in VR, and defining an interesting space that sits in between 2D and 3D to deliver online festivals. So it's quite something. I really look forward to that. But before, I'd like you to invite you to join VR audience specialist Catherine Allen, as she shares several years worth of research on what new audiences want from a cultural virtual reality experience. Catherine is the CEO of Limina Immersive, the company who taught cultural VR theater experiences across the UK and internationally, reaching over 15,000 audience members. Quite something. Her work has become known for understanding audience demand whilst pioneering excellence in audience duty of care. This talk will cover new audiences, what new audience and who the new audiences can be, what barriers they face, the sort of content they want, and how to get the screening context just right for them. And I think this is a fantastic talk to set up the scene, and without further ado, Catherine, please step in and enchant us with your presentation.
Hello, it's great to be here, great to join you all, being beamed in virtually from the UK. I'm just going to share my screen for you. So today, what we'll be talking about is what new audiences want from virtual reality, and specifically looking at cultural virtual reality as well, which is something that I'm sure many of you, having seen this morning's presentations, are curious to explore some more. We'll be looking at new audiences because, and I'll get into this argument later, I think I'll set up my stall now. They are really important that we reach them, that we really expand the audience members for VR as soon as possible. And I'll tell you why, but this is something that essentially Limina has been focused on for the last 3-4 years, since 2016 when we were founded. Now, of course, when you're looking at what new audiences want, how are you meant to know when, as an audience member, what you want if you're asked, if you have no experience of what's on offer? And I'm aware that there is this you know, kind of this challenge. You can't, Ford used to say, Henry Ford said, if you'd have asked people what they wanted in terms of vehicles, they would have said faster horses. They wouldn't have known that a car was possible to ask for it. And you could see that parallel with virtual reality. I guess also imagine you'd never tried wine before and somebody asked you if you preferred red wine or rosé or sparkling or white. You'd have very little frame of reference to answer that question. So what we have done at Limina over the last few years is the equivalent of a wine tasting. We have shown the public lots of different types of virtual reality within that creative and cultural space, and many non-gaming as well. And we've observed what's most popular and how people have preferred experiencing it in terms of the form, the context. And as mentioned, we had feedback from over 15,000 audience members over the years, and the results are really the foundation of what I'm presenting to you today. But yes, first let's start with the terms and setting out, as I mentioned earlier, why I think it's so important, a matter of urgency, that we reach new audiences. So terms, this is how I'd sum up virtual reality. It's human imagination and experience, which has been bottled via a form of hardware and software. But it's not just bottled, otherwise that would be more of a time capsule. It's then scaled to hundreds, if not thousands, maybe millions of people. And once that's happened, it's not a one-way direction of broadcast. It's a two-way street. There's interactivity as well. So every virtual reality experience essentially becomes a co-creation between the audience member and the creator. Each user of this new form of technology will play a major role in shaping that technology. That applies to all forms of emerging technology, not just immersive. And they'll be influential in creating its fundamental concepts and underpinning architecture. And I guess in the same way that our lives are still shaped by the ideas and the architecture and the norms in the physical world of our ancestors, so our technology users' experiences shaped by the technology users of the past. So these new online worlds are being built, and the shape of these worlds, these fundamental principles, has been dramatically influenced by our online ancestors. I really love this archive photograph of an internet cafe in Edinburgh in the 90s, because it makes me think of those early adopters, those people who were first in on the World Wide Web, on computing. It makes me think of what we have done at Limina, taking virtual reality to arts venues across the UK and beyond. This was maybe the equivalent then of people setting up entrepreneurial creative spirit, setting up internet cafes, and these would become that space for that early adoption to happen with the World Wide Web. So just these people, these users that we see of the World Wide Web, maybe they're the equivalent of the people now who are using virtual reality and shaping its norms and its structure. So the people who experience it first will most experience the shape of this new medium. The early adopters' tastes influence a platform or a media form for the rest of us for years, decades, even centuries to come. So let's look at where we are now. Well, this you may be familiar. It's called the diffusion of innovation theory, and it shows the adoption of an emerging technology across society and where the smaller and the bigger audience groups lies. Currently where we are with virtual reality is trying to cross, you see that gap? that chasm. We're trying to cross it. And the people who are the early adopters, our research and many other studies and surveys have shown, they tend to be young men in their 20s or 30s, mainly from Western world, mainly with significant levels of disposable income, and usually white as well. So essentially what we need to do is we need to make this group more diverse in order to be getting a more representative early audience base who will shape this medium for future. And that really is why I think it's a matter of urgency to draw people from that early adopter pool, turn them into draw people from the early majority, turn them into early adopters, and make the early adopter group as diverse as possible to best reflect the population. So this presentation is rigorously and unapologetically focused on these new audiences, people who haven't tried VR before, or maybe once or twice, maybe some roller coaster game or something, but people who would not consider themselves into it already. But I guess before now I've laid out my terms and my argument, I should just take a step back really and properly introduce myself. This is one of the first times I tried virtual reality, about 2014. And to be honest, I'd never really heard of it until 2014 either. All that development in the 90s passed me by when I was a kid. I worked at an app development company called Touch Press. I caught the VR bug after having tried it and got my first job in the virtual reality space, producing two of the BBC's first public-facing virtual reality experience. So one, Easter Rising, Voice of a Rebel, here's the poster for it, and then another piece called No Small Talk, for the VR chat show. And whilst I absolutely loved producing this content, really enjoyed it, I have to say there was a bit of a frustration that the audience wasn't there yet. Maybe it was an impatience, but I was envious of my colleagues for they were making TV programs for hundreds of thousands, sometimes millions of audience members at the BBC. And we were lucky initially with a launch of a few hundred. So I set out to solve that problem. And when my contract at the BBC finished, I set up my own company, Limina Immersive, and we had this fundamental central question, which is how can artistic creative virtual reality be normalized to broad and diverse audiences who reflect the population? And I told you why that's important. And the way we did that, I normalized virtual reality by finding a time and a place where people already push themselves out their comfort zone and experience weird artistic things, theatres. So we partnered with theatres and arts venues, initially across the UK. We were meeting audiences in the middle really with something that they do anyway, where there's a ritual, a shape, a structure around it. And we made, and then we iterated a format for screening virtual reality in this synchronized way where people could book a ticket, they could come in groups, we'd have a maximum capacity of just over 20 to 25 audience members at a time, and they get to experience the same thing, same time, and talk about it afterwards. So here are some of the venues we've worked with across the UK. There's way too many to put onto one slide, but dozens and dozens we've worked with. I think probably the best way to describe it, if you haven't seen a Limina VR Theatre show, one of our audience members tweeted, she said it was like a cross between a cinema and a spa, which I'm very proud of. Then we set up our own VR theatre that was more permanent, well, 6 months, where we were able to focus really on trying out different content and not traveling around the country. And then after that, after seeing what was most popular, the kind of content, we really honed it into this quite kind of glossy tour package, where we worked with Felix and Paul and Cirque du Soleil to tour Cirque du Soleil in virtual reality show. We worked with MK2 to license that, who are based in France. And this, through running all these different shows, of course, lots and lots of audience members were experiencing the work, and we got the opportunity to research them. So we partnered with research partners, mainly universities, to study our audience base, to talk to them about what they liked, what they didn't like, what they felt comfortable with. And the basis of that research, sorry, the outcome of that research is the basis for lots of what I'm sharing with you. Yeah, really great, rigorous academic research, which has helped us hugely. So that's that, Limina, but now let's look at your audiences and what you might do in your venues or with your companies. So I think the first thing to do is work out who your audience are. And I can't, of course, tell you who your audience are, but what I can tell you is they're people, I think they should be people that you aim for who haven't tried VR before, if you want to keep expanding that group. And our research in the UK shows, we ran a survey with just over 2,000 respondents, that 88% of people, this is as of last week, have never tried virtual reality before. So if it's similar in other countries, then you've got a pretty big pool. So I would, say go for that. There are low-hanging fruit. So here's the question is who are those people who have never tried VR before, but with the right context would do? This is why I have these pairs, these pairs, low-hanging fruit. And I should mention, it really does matter somebody's status as to having done VR or not, because both our King's College research and our partnership with Royal Holloway University showed that there is a big difference between a novice user's VR experience and an experienced user's VR experience. The groups are distinct, so it matters. Now, okay, looking at that 88%, what's the demographic skew? So this is based on the results of our survey that I ran last week for today. Most are likely to be over 35. So we found that research, but also that's come from various, you see, Ofcom, Global Web Index, found the same thing. More likely to be women, and also more likely to be from what Ofcom describes as a low socioeconomic group. So therefore less income. So whilst this is not saying this is everybody that you have to attract, I see this more as a sort of a helpful reference point of who are the people who are not using VR at the moment. And then what are their characteristics in terms of as technology users. Now this comes from, I showed you that curve earlier. Well, this from a technology adoption curve and from the same author, in the early 90s, 94, did an analysis of what's the difference in characteristics between early adopters, these people, and the early majority. And I mean, I would say that it does seem, to me, it looks like a bit of a bias that this research seems to see early adopters as very cool. But the early majority, just take away that bias for a sec. I think there's some really interesting stuff, but the early majority, they're not driven by the technology. They're more averse to taking risks and they may require more support. And that's what we found at Limina, which we'll see when I talk about the barriers in a moment. What else brings them together? You'll be wondering, why is there a rectangle on screen? It's because they have been looking at their media in these glowing rectangles, like you are right now, for most of their lives. And to see something that's different, where they're not situated around this glowing rectangle, is probably quite likely to give them that wow moment. And that's something that definitely, when people first try VR, you've probably seen it yourself if you've shown it to others, it can be quite incredible to see that that first time for somebody. Okay, so let's move on to content. What content do audiences want? Well, what we found from much research, but a lot came out of a report we did with for an organisation called Digital Catapult in the UK, which looked at immersive formats that future audiences we predict will like and there'll be traction with. We found there was something that linked all these formats together, which is that if you look at the International Society of Presence Research's definition of immersion, well, there's two forms, there's spatial and there's mental. The most popular types of virtual reality that we found from that study back in 2018 was when there was both forms of immersion. So fantastic spatial immersion, really high high-end graphics, for instance, can achieve that, or binaural audio, where you feel present, almost physically present, but then also mental immersion. So that's the type of immersion like you might get with a narrative story, for instance, when you're really locked into a great book, tactical immersion, or even that trance-like kind of repetitive immersion. And when you've got those two together, that's where we saw the real magic. So we talked about those formats that we identified identified could have potential future audiences. We tested that on today's audiences though, and we found the most popular formats were activity simulator, immersive maker tools, and fantasy trip. And if you're interested in these formats and want to hear more, I would take a snapshot of this slide and check out the report itself, immersive content formats for future audiences. And then finally, just to wrap up on content, both King's College and Royal Holloway studies also found that mood machine was a real strength in this medium. What do I mean? What does mood machine mean? It means that you come in feeling one way, and if it can make it so you come out feeling another way, then that audiences would define that as a quality experience. So that's something I think that we really found super popular, was people saying, I come out and I feel different. And one of our VR hosts, our team members, said afterwards, after her first shift, she said, people, they're not buying stories, they're buying feelings. And I really agree. It's Uella, one of our team members, who said that. And I really agree. You know, maybe we have more in common with a soft drinks brand than a novel. And so yes, we like to talk about the mood machine at Limina. And just to summarize content, here's what we found was the most popular shows in order that we screened. So you can see the themes here: nature, surreal, a sense of surrealness, that trippiness, live entertainment performance, and when you get sort of the best seat in the house, the natural world, animals, and mindfulness. So most popular, starting with World of Cirque du Soleil, then it was Ocean, Body and Mind, then Wilderness, Our Very Human Impact, then Dream Sublime, then Infinite Trip, top of the pops shows. So there's content, that's what we found was popular content. What about context? What, I guess when we're looking at context, maybe the best lens to look at it from is what actually gets in the way for new audiences, what stops them from experiencing this. So the reference here, if you want to check it out, is a report that I wrote for Nesta for their Policy and Evidence Centre that came out in December last year. Take a snapshot of this if you want to look further. It's a report called Beyond the Early Adopter, Widening the Appeal for Virtual Reality. And we identified these barriers. So key barriers. Number one, time. Time is a major barrier. Spare time is a really precious resource. And in the same way that money is a really precious resource. And some people have more of it than others. So according to in the UK, the Office for National Statistics, they found from their most recent survey that men get 5 hours more leisure time a week than women. And 2 of those 5 hours are spent on computing and hobbies, which at home virtuality would probably fall into. There's loads of other disparities. For instance, people in skilled trades get almost 8 hours less leisure time on average than average. People in the north tend to get less leisure time in the UK than people who live in the south. So there are many disparities with leisure time, and what we found was that really, really mattered, because if something's precious, if you don't have much of it, you're going to be more wary about if you can risk it. Do you have that time available to risk, to lose? This is just a quote from well, two of our audience groups. This is a couple was telling us, the woman said, there are 1,000,001 things we should be doing right now. We don't get much quality time together, really, just the 2 of us. Tonight, we decided to find childcare and take a punt. Here's someone else. With the cinema, there is less chance it could be a waste of time, because the cinema's a known entity. So what's the solution? De-risk it. You could create something that's really got that pull factor. That's the way of de-risking it. So something that's pleasurable, that people really want to do, that helps offset that risk. You can include something familiar. For instance, David Attenborough, our show, David Attenborough's Great Barrier Reef that we screened, very popular because there was Blue Planet on the TV at the same time, and also the love of David Attenborough, he's known. But that could be even a familiar topic, you know, a zeitgeist topic, or in a venue that they know already, for instance. And then work out how to fit this into your audience member's life, think of the occasionality, what pocket of time, and offer it to them on a plate. I think this is especially important for at-home virtual reality, because at-home VR doesn't have that sort of frame with it that, say, going out for a social evening out would, for instance, which you might have for in-location VR. Then I'm just going to whiz through because I'm very short on time. Identity can be such a barrier. These kind of images, this is the top image on photocase.com, which is a stock image library for virtual reality. One of the top ones from Shutterstock, another of the top ones from Shutterstock. And when this is the imagery that, you know, the top stock photos, people are using this to depict virtual reality, and it all seems to be the same guy, you know. This can be how most people feel. If they're not that person, they don't feel they identify with him, then technology, they say, this is a quote from our audience members in a focus group, can make you feel stupid. You can feel that it's not for you. Often it's perceived digital skills that get in the way, and that worry about, people say, looking like a wally in public, which means, am I going to look silly? And both of those really come down to thinking it's not something that is for me. This isn't something that I would do. This is more something, for instance, some of our audience members would often say, for my teenage nephew, for instance, or for my son. So these were concerns, these identities. So you can get over that in your marketing through reassuring people that they don't need to be techie in order to participate, and delivering on that, making things feel normal by turning it into a shared experience. Don't using all that futuristic imagery in your marketing, and then remembering privacy for location-based VR. If everyone's doing VR in the same space, it's great. But actually, if something is sort of public, in a public, maybe a bar or a lobby area, that can really make people feel concerned and nervous. So yeah, there's one more barrier here that I will share before I conclude, which is anxiety. This is a major barrier. It really is a combination of all the barriers I've talked about that can add to that, those worries and fears. And then this is, I guess, what people are worried about might happen. There's so many of these videos online of people falling over or freaking out with virtual reality. This is, people may have seen this or soaked it in through osmosis and worry that this might happen to them, or worry that they might feel sick. So what's the solution? Is duty of care. That's why I'm so proud that we were described as being a bit like a spa. Because you can let people know what to expect from the experience beforehand, give them that framework, that scaffolding. This is, you just see here some of the guidance that we sent out in our email before people would come to the show. And then here, this is one of my favorite products, antibacterial face wipes, which we actually use to clean the headsets with. And we made it very clear and obvious that we clean the headsets in between. So yes, duty of care in many ways, very important to help alleviate those anxiety fears. So to conclude.
Quite quickly, Catherine, we're really running out of time.
Duty of care is absolutely everything. To broaden VR audiences, screen VR that genuinely works for first timers, test it on them. And good content does prioritize mood and emotional journey over classic narrative. And it's easier than most people assume to break out of VR's archetypal audience. We did it. A person over 55, for instance, was over 5 times more likely to click through on one of our ads than a person under 24. So we can do it, you can do it. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Catherine. Sorry to rush you there, but time is ticking, and you've squeezed quite a lot in this presentation. And maybe in the interest of time, going straight to questions and answers. A lovely question we've just got, that in the past we've showed audiences quite a lot of bad VR experiences for whatever reasons. The content wasn't quite right, the equipment wasn't working too well, and it's possible that we lost them. Is there a way to bring them back once they had some bad experiences?
That's such a good question. Yes. I think really making it clear in the marketing all the things that you're doing that you know are the opposite of what they might have experienced that they didn't like. So for instance, marketing that the headsets are cleaned in between, for instance, or marketing, in your marketing, demonstrating the content, a way of showing quality. Maybe that it's won awards, for instance, or quotes from somebody they might, somebody famous, giving a thumbs up for it. Like a book from a new author might have a quote from an already established author, something like that. So I guess all the points I've made, but really go for it on those points.
Yes.
Yeah, because it's a slightly harder sell, but it's totally possible.
And I have another one, but I'd like to contextualize it by a preceding question. I made a note of something that you said. I don't know if I wrote it correctly. People aren't buying stories; they are buying feelings. Was that? Now, at least in this audience, people value story quite a lot, and we believe the stories that we're selling. Not so. How could you just enlighten that statement a bit?
Yeah. I guess it's the story that's their own that they take away with them. So when our audience members would talk about the experience afterwards, they would be saying, "This is what I did. This happened to me, and then I did this, and then I chose to do this." And more interactive, and the more agency there is in that story as well, but even non-interactive. So because it becomes an experience that's something that you did rather than that you observed, it's your story as an audience member to take away with you. So yes, story is crucially important, but what your role is to create that environment, that space for the audience member to construct their own story. It's not a great medium for receiving other people's stories and not having any agency in that at all.
Okay, I'll stay with this matter a bit. So I'll go to the question. So the member of the audience says, she really loves or he really loves the mood machine concept and idea, but they continue to say a short wow moment isn't enough anymore. People, quite a few have the taster for VR. So they say, I think one of the I can't read the text. I think what's intriguing for the audience is the story, and the story. It's interesting that you say we create a story and we build a story around an experience, but there's also quite a lot of narrative intent, and people were talking earlier about cinematic VR. So there are stories still to tell, not just in our interpretation.
Definitely, and I wouldn't say that wow moment that's not what I mean by mood machine. It's the most popular experiences where people will come in, for instance, feeling maybe het up from stress of the work day, then they would do an ocean, body and mind show, and then they would come out with friends feeling relaxed and chilled and reflective. And there are stories within that show, the ocean, body and mind show, but the thing that would really stick with them was how it made them feel.
Yes.
And it feels like you can tell stories in VR for sure, but the thing that VR is really, really good at, that other mediums can't do so well, I think, is that sense of like a complete mood journey. Like it's like taking a mood pill or something. You can come out and feel completely different. So I think that's a particular strength VR has. I would never, say don't use VR for storytelling, but it's just think about the strength that VR has as maybe a tool for story doing as well, and for mood.
No, that's a really interesting finding, because we were debating earlier what is a game experience, a theatrical experience, a cinematic experience, and I think what you say is, again, just don't bother too much about that, but focus on feelings and experiences. That's what your finding is.
Really important discussion, and to be honest, I felt maybe like 3 years ago too nervous to say my hunch, and then lots of research. And I felt comfortable sharing that I don't think storytelling is the be-all and end-all of good virtual reality.
Yes, yes. And in that space, you've presented a few categories of applications of VR, one of which was immersive maker tools. Could you just exemplify or say a few words about what you mean by that? What are they?
Yeah. So making things in virtual reality, like for instance the Tilt Brush app or Grill in Oculus. So where you can create and sculpt something. It can be hugely therapeutic, or they can be really pragmatic and useful. A good way of hanging out with friends as well. For at home virtual reality, there's these sort of spaces, meeting room spaces even, where you can then just draw things together. So that's something that we found, our audiences, they love that. They often would forget they were even in VR. It wasn't the thing that they would remember. So it was something that had very high levels of immersion.
So they were the category kind of they're targeting audiences, not makers of experiences.
Yeah, so immersive maker tools being more like drawing in 3D.
Yes, very clear. And maybe if I think we could just push the time a little bit to ask a question. If a smaller company wants to develop something and they want to get a taster from the audience, they probably haven't got access to the research that you mentioned. How do they break this apparent vicious circle of not knowing what the audience want and not being able to do a study because the teasers aren't there?
Well, they can have access to those the 2 reports that I referenced, free, available online. So you can see that, but then also nothing beats testing your own audience, of course. Yes. So what we learned was from a particular group of people, for instance, predominantly UK based. So I think I would say do as much, use not only audience testing, but also we love brainstorming with our audiences. So if you find a sort of focus group of the sort of people that you would like to attract, and maybe even brainstorm with them, talk to them before you come up with the ideas to give you that sense of like what the demand is and what would fit into their life, then you're much more likely to get what gets called in the world of startups a product market. So you get something that fits with what they want. So to talk to your audience, I think, before you even come up with an idea for what you want to make, if you can.
Well, again, thank you ever so much. A lot said in a short presentation, a short space of time, and said it very eloquently. Thank you very much, Catherine, and hopefully you can stay to the rest of the presentations. We move on now to the quick firing presentation, sharp and short. And we are going to start with Nils Corte and Roman Senkl, who in their talk will focus on how to build a mixed reality setup on stage and how to work with Peppers Holosuite, a multi-layer visualization software, discussing both artistic opportunities and the technical realization. Creative coders Nils and director Roman will look into examples, introduce basic projection setup, and discuss advantages and disadvantages of different environments. And here they are.
Unter der Bühnendecke installieren wir einen lichtstarken Beamer. Mit diesem projizieren wir unsere Schauspielerinnen, die hinter der Bühne vor einem Blackscreen gefilmt werden, auf eine Leinwand auf dem Boden der Bühne. Dann kommt der eigentliche Clou. In einem 45-Grad-Winkel zu den Zuschauern wird eine transparente Spiegelfolie verspannt. Die Folie spiegelt dann den reflektierten Videostream in Richtung der Zuschauer und erzeugt so die Illusion, die Schauspielerinnen wären leibhaftig auf der Bühne. Während der Stückentwicklung haben wir eine Software programmiert, die es den Akteuren auf der Bühne ermöglicht, in Echtzeit mit virtuellen Objekten zu interagieren. Um das zu realisieren, erfassen wir mit 2 Lighthouse-Boxen fortlaufend die Positionsdaten eines Motion-Tracking-Handschuhs. Anhand dieser Daten synchronisiert die Software die Aktion der Schauspielerin mit den Elementen der virtuellen Realität. Als Ausgabe erstellt sie 3 Videostreams. Einen für das Monitoring, damit die Schauspielerin sich und ihre Handlungen in der virtuellen Realität sehen kann. Einen für alle VR-Objekte vor ihr und einen für alle Objekte hinter ihr. Den Vordergrundstream projizieren wir dann auf unsere holographische Folie. Den Hintergrundstream werfen wir an eine Rückprojektionsleinwand. Die Schauspielerin steht dazwischen und kann nun mit beliebigen virtuellen Objekten auf der Bühne interagieren. Umgekehrt können natürlich auch die Objekte auf sie reagieren.
That's what the world is talking about. You've got confusion all over the land. Mother against daughter, father against son, the whole thing, it's getting out of hand. Wouldn't have to suffer. There was more love for your brother, but these are trying times. You've got the riots in the ghettos, and it's all going down. I don't understand it. From my point of view, I remember somebody said, do unto others as you'd have them do unto you. Folks wouldn't have to suffer. There was more love for each other, but these are trying times.
Zeit ist gekommen. Führe die Order. 6, 6, 6 aus.
Wow, that was something. If Pepper knew that tens of years later, his technology is going to be, or his invention is going to be used with virtual reality, it's amazing. The next talk by Silvia Mercuriale will discuss Swimming Home, an immersive theater experience which places the audience at the very center of a fictional narrative. She managed to deliver this experience directly into people's home through the app Mercurios Net app that they developed and about which we'll hear. Silvia works in the liminal space between fiction and real, using binaural, underwater and 3D recordings to mix, confuse and embellish our surroundings, overlaying a fictional and poetic world that exists only in the headphones. She allows the environment around the participants to take new, surprising guises. Silvia, over to you.
Hello, Marion, thanks. So I'm just gonna immediately share my screen here and do some like very non-subtle subliminal messages. Here it is. Swimming Home, just to remind us that that's where we're going to go back to, because before going there, I think it's kind of important to go through how I got to get into binaural recording and kind of explore what sound can do. So the kind of work I do places the audience at the very center of the story. And to do that, I have developed a strategy that I called autoteatro. Autoteatro means audience members there are no performers, there's only audience members, and everything happens in a very private space in a way. What I do, I develop a script, which is a series of instructions, which audience member perform without though having to actually have the responsibility of being an actor, of learning lines, of knowing what to do next and come up with interesting storylines. The story is all preset. All the audience does is put the headphones on and follow the instructions. And by doing that, something happens. And there's something that happens is an event. It's an actual thing. It's a real event that happens to them. So in a way, I sort of kind of hide the technology completely to bring back reality as the main object of my research, the world. Everything that is around us, the person in front of me, and all of that. So I'm gonna actually, this is Etiquette, and is the show for which I developed Autoteatro in 2007, together with Anne Tampton. And I'm gonna play a little bit of this just to give you a sense of what the strategy is, and so that you understand what I'm talking about in a clear way.
Person in front of you.
So you will understand they're listening to two different tracks, which are synchronized with each other.
Take a deep breath and clear your throat.
So that each person's action becomes a performance for the person watching.
Place one finger in the center of the table. You're touching the stage. The stage can be anything. It can be anywhere. Look at the tiny lines. They could be aeroplane routes over a continent. Or maybe the floor of a barber shop. Look at B.
So I kind of use this technology, or rather just this strategy of Autoteatro, a series of instruction to create an interaction with two people who have no idea what they're about to perform, and they discover not only the story, but their role within it by enacting it, by following certain instructions. So it's very simple. It's absolutely for everyone. There is nothing that requires any specific skill other than being able to hear and do what you're told to do. And all of the instructions are very simple. So this is, let's say that this is a way to transform the performer that is in front of you, or that could be your friend, into somebody who is now surprising. And in the same way that I like this idea of transforming real people into characters, but without putting a mask, allowing them to be actually really themselves, only performing certain actions which might not be usual for them. In the same way, I started thinking about, well, then how do I change the world around them as well, the environment, public spaces and all of that. Now, our brains, as we all know, are really brilliant, and they love to make sense of everything they perceive, of all of the stimuli that they get from the outside world. And one example, which is obviously very important in this whole virtual reality thing, talk, is the idea of the rubber hand illusion. So in the same way that the rubber hand illusion and allows us to almost kind of feel part of our bodies, which we don't really have, we can buy into an object which is projected in front of us, even though we know it's not there, because we need to make sense of the story we're are in the same way, somewhat sound does that. Now, this is obviously not the latest binaural microphone head, but I like the image. So in the same way, we can use sound to do that. And this is exactly what I do. I create worlds that kind of enhance reality, in a way, actually start from reality. Say if I were in a public setting, like a supermarket, as I did for Wonderland, I would start by going out in the supermarket with my tiny microphones and a hidden recorder and record the real sound of the supermarket. After that, I can use this sound to then modify how we perceive our environment, like you see in films, for example, when suddenly the sound goes off and you got a narrator, or the sound goes off and we got like a weird sort of now surreal reality. The same thing, you can do it with the real world. So in essentially through sound, we transform the world and we can make it into the backdrop of a fantastical, almost film-like experience in which the audience, through the Teatro strategy, are the main characters. So these are the two things that I like to combine. So this was Wonderland, but we can have a look at this a little later on. And I carried on kind of looking into what you can do with sound, and did a little kind of experiment with the, I'm gonna turn the sound down a bit, but with recording my brain waves as I was doing a sort of eye choreography, and then translating the brain waves that had been recorded during which I was doing the choreography, and made them into sound. Now, this is all an illusion, again, rubber hand illusion. It's all about illusion and imagination. The audience member will follow the sound and will follow the instruction, and the instructions are timed with the sound. So it's somewhat a fake interactive performance, but that is felt absolutely real by the audience. And then I carried on and I decided to do it in a theater. So how do you make the theater into a virtual space when you're already there? And so I kind of like used recordings of real audiences during real shows, so that I could create the environment. So what is amazing about binaural recording is the fact that now you don't just hear the sound phonically, you hear the sound spatially. So somewhat the world that you build once you've got your headphones on is completely artificial, yet it feels really real. So once you put into this world, which actually essentially really doesn't exist, then you can do whatever you want, take it away from them, transform it into other things. And that's how I got to working on Swimming Home. And Swimming Home was originally kind of thought of for an audience that would sit in the audience, in the viewing gallery of a municipal pool, looking down at people during normal opening hours as they swam. The idea was to change the perception of the swimming pool and take people away from where they were at times, to then bring them back into the space, just to actually have a moment of meditation on what is their role as watchers. What do we want when we watch? And that's an interesting thing, thinking about what Catherine would say as well, about the feeling. Exactly that. The sound can completely create a totally new feeling of the environment that you have around, and because the brain is so amazing, it will make sense of it. It will buy into the world that you're proposing, even though it actually doesn't exist other than in your headphones. So I am doing the show Swimming Home now, not for an audience sitting in the viewing gallery of a swimming pool, but in fact for people in their own home. Audience members are standing with a costume, as you always do in theatre, a few props, also, as you would, and with their bath filled up or the shower ready in some ways. They download this app, which is Mercuriousnet, the National Ear Theatre, and the app starts the show automatically at the slot that you have booked. And by doing that, it allows people, especially now during pandemic, it really kind of allowed people to be able to have a sort of kind of entertainment experience without, for once, without going out, which obviously we know is not very possible right now, but also without it needing a screen. Now, it's only my experience and my way of relating to the show that matters. Everything else it's not even brought into the scene. We are now transforming your bathroom into a theater, or into an absolutely virtual world in sound, and then changing it constantly. Sometimes we're in the bathroom, sometimes we're at a party by an outdoor pool in Hollywood, sometimes we're underwater, and we used a lot of underwater recording as well as binaural recording and just normal kind of voice recording. So it's been a real mixture of different ways of recording sounds, and what does each element bring to the show, and I used it depending on what I wanted it to do. So the voice in this show, for example, in my head, and hopefully also in that of the on the audience members, is water that is around you all the time. Sometimes through the water gushing out of your tap, sometimes it's just condensation on your mirror, sometimes it's just the humidity in the air, or the water we have in our blood and in our inner ear. We're all made out of water. So really Swimming Home was an opportunity to exactly bring theatre and an experience that was heightened and other and fantastical into the daily routine, into like such a banal place as the bathroom. Very important, but obviously not the most exciting place normally. So everything is possible when you use sound, and if you take care of creating all of this kind of world that go around us. So before we leave you, if you have headphones, great, stay with your headphones. I'm going to do last thing is exactly 1 minute. I'll leave you with 1 minute of Swimming Home to give you a sense of different ways of using microphones, and have fun.
Turn the sink tap on. Turn it on. That's better. Thanks for letting me into your bathroom. I am running through the plumbing system around your city, through miles of pipes hiding under the tarmac, around corners, up and down floors, inside your walls, and now I am here, but I'm also elsewhere. You're all standing in front of your sink, with water running at the same time. You can turn the tap off now.
These are my contacts if you want more information, and the app is up and running for the whole world.
Thank you very much, Sylvia. That's really inspiring, and it's interesting to see connections with what Catherine said, that you seem to go beyond narrative media and try to go into the deeper parts of our brain. So it's quite rewarding to see that. We need, for the next speakers, please keep an eye on time, because we have to stick to 10 minutes per slot. And to say that at the moment the questions will all be answered in the breakout rooms, so please keep them for those conversations. Our next speaker is Sarah Buser. who will be talking about the possibilities of location-based augmented reality. She's saying that the phrase "all the world's a stage" really takes on a different meaning at the moment. Based on examples of her work, she will give a brief insight into the possibilities of AR in a performative context. Questions that she's addressing: how can we understand reality anew when we move in it, and simultaneously in a fictitious space when we become aware of how much we live in a fragmentary world whose meaning depends so much on ourselves. With location-based AR, the line between reality and fiction, between virtuality and physicality blur, and new practices emerge. So Sarah, let's see what kind of new practices you can talk to us about.
Thank you very much. Hi, everyone. And also thank you very much for having me. Yes, I will be talking about superimpositions of reality. And for this, I will share my presentation. I think you can, I hope you can see it now. Yeah. So I chose this title because I work with augmented reality in a performative context, and I like to believe that while diving into fictional stories, I always also look at reality itself. So for me, theater is always like connected with the attempt to change perspectives, to find new ways of seeing. Augmented reality technology allows me to overlay realities, to make visible multiple overlapping and perhaps also sometimes contradictory concepts. Also, I think I should not forget to mention that I use AR in public spaces. So I like towns or forests, and it is location-based, so location-specific, site-specific, using GPS data of the phones or tablets that the audience is provided with. For this very short talk, I would like to highlight 6 aspects that particularly fascinate me about working with AR in a performative context. It will all be very short and brief, and I just trust that then in the half hour afterwards, we will be able to go into much more detail on these different points, and also, of course, tackle your questions and interests. So first of all, AR enables to augment, to overlay reality as we see it without a device. This picture here shows such a reality overlay where we used features of the physical surroundings, like the tower you see in the background on the left, and then transformed them into the virtual space. In here and dort, that was the performance, which means here and there. The audience could walk around in the physical space in a very small town in Switzerland, and we provided them with smartphones where there was a software built with Unity running on it. And through the smartphones, they could simultaneously explore the virtual world that was built kind of on top of the structure of the real world, and could be viewed through the phone. So the phone more or less worked like a window into this 3D world. And when I wanted my avatar, which you can see here on the right picture, when I wanted my avatar to move in a certain direction in this virtual world, I myself in the physical world had to walk into the corresponding direction. So I was always already into realities at the same time. Working with the location data of the phones and tablets allows me to situate a thought, a story, a scenario, whatever you like, into an environment that already exists. So this underlines, or I think highlights or contradicts sometimes even the story, or at least I think gives it an additional layer of meaning. For here, for example, you can see this is another piece, 3 players in the Brandenburger forest that seem to be looking at nothing, but in fact they are entering a portal which leads them into space. And for this, we also have a short video. I will stop my screen share and hope you can see it. I don't see the video now, but I hope you see it. Ah, yeah. So here I see it. Yes, so basically you could walk around on this meadow, and then you see there's this bubble, and you could enter it. And once you entered, you were transformed or transported into the universe and could look around with your tablet in 360 degrees while flying by a planet, which we can see here. Yeah, so the whole piece was a reflection on the relativity of time and space. And so I thought it would be interesting to not just write about relativity, but let the players experience it, like being in it, like being in the forest, and then all of a sudden also being in the universe and back to the forest. Yes, so I will share again the screen. Here we are. Yeah, so another aspect I focus on is the fragmentary storytelling. I believe that in a world that is as fragmented as we know it, it is worth exploring this kind of storytelling. So of course, because the whole town or parts of the forest become the stage on which the performance takes place, this enables me to place fragments like video, audio, writings, anything basically, into the real world, leaving them fragmented as they are, so the audience can explore them in their own pace and in their own order. Here, for example, there is a Future Is Now, a play we did in 2017, where the player could influence the way the story for the two protagonists develops by choosing posts. So you can see them on the left, they were hanging around, and they could choosing posts, and on the right you can see a picture, a video snippet that was then generated depending on what the audience decided on. And this video also was placed in front of the city hall at the same spot where the video was shot and also where the player was standing at this very moment. So the viewer could look into the future or the past of the place they were actually standing at in the performance. Yeah, and as already mentioned just now, through the fragmentary layout and of course the location-based layout, the role of the spectator and the audience is expanding. So the spectator becomes the player, has to become active herself, and can or also has to choose her way through town and through the narrative. And here I really like the analogy that we are all constructing our reality on a daily basis. Everyone is rationalizing reality as we go along, as we are trying to understand it. It's not just something that is given to us and then we are like, and then we are passively consuming it. No, it's more something that we are actively tending to. Yeah, so another interesting characteristic of augmented reality I like to highlight is the possibility to depict multi-perspectivity. Here we see on the phone of the player how she is debating with the High Court of the alpacas why they should or shouldn't erase all the humans on Earth, while in the fiction. So while in the physical world, two people are getting married. I really like these situations because I think it becomes evident that there's no such thing as one truth, and that it always like depends on the situation I'm in or the knowledge or experience I have, how I understand like a certain thing. Yeah, and of course the fact that she is standing there with her phone like this looks to the outside as if she was filming, but then actually she's just looking into the fictional world with her phone. So there we have like two different meanings of her standing there depending on what knowledge I have about the situation. Yeah, and another aspect that you have seen and in all the slides is the possibility of like direct intervention in the cityscape, or here the landscape, through writing or placing strange moving objects. So with this, I can transform the place or transform places we thought we already knew to then become the stage of my narrative, or to become something else and be part of the narrative. Also, I can reinterpret it or reinterpret what is being seen by the spectator. Here, there's an example on an artistic and educational project I did with Kunsthalle Basel and the artist and educator Franziska Baumgartner, for which I 3D scanned and animated the participants and then placed them directly as virtual characters into the physical space where they could tell their own story. So the curated art that was exhibited was no longer just like speaking for itself, but the participants were also heard. And here for this example, the lady transformed or decided to transform the whole showroom into an aquarium. And then she was like swimming around in it and telling a story about the art she was seeing. So yeah, I understand AR also as a mean of being able to debate or depict who is able to speak and who is listened to and what stories, what stories basically are told. Yeah, so maybe to wrap it up, and so I summarize quickly again, like which aspects of using AR in a performative context are really important to me. So this is the AR overlay that allows the player to be in two realities at the same time. With AR, I can situate a thought or a story in a physical environment of the everyday life, for example. Because the stage, in a sense, gets much bigger, I can focus on fragmentary storytelling, where the audience becomes active and finds their own way through the fictional universe. And because everyone has like different meanings for the snippets that are displaced all over the place, they see different things in it, and they make their own story of it. And also I think this is a great possibility to make the player experience multi-perspectivity. Yeah, and also with AR, I can hijack the physical reality, comment on it, reinterpret it, and ask the question whose stories are told and who is listened to. Yeah. So I'm already over. This is basically for now. And of course we can discuss later and tackle also like technical questions and everything. So thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Sarah. You're naughty too. You've gone over the time limit. So please, speakers, try to keep to the time allocated, but very inspiring examples. Thank you very much. And I think some very eloquent phrases. You're trying to challenge the relativity of time and space. You have the beautiful see to move, move to see, and the fact that we construct our own reality daily really inspires work that we can do in this space. So thank you ever so much. And it's time to move to our next speaker, Oliver Prosker. He's going to talk to us about the treachery of images, live augmented reality performance, which was developed for the 100th anniversary of the Bauhaus, where they took the leitmotif of art and technology, a new unity coined by Walter Gropius, seriously to try out something fundamentally new. And the result was Europe's first augmented reality performance with live actors. Oliver, over to you. We can't wait to hear about it.
Thank you very much. I share the screen. I hope it works. Here we are. Yes, I'm in two positions. I'm making the management of the company Nico and the Navigator. So I'm also in head of the financial part, and this made it possible to realize a project which was much more expensive than normal other projects. Mainly we make productions in the opera world. We're making big music theater productions, but we also have a deep relation to the Bauhaus because we have founded the company there. So it was very clear that we make a project for the anniversary. Originally, I studied industrial design, and so I was very much interested in the 90s in virtual reality. But as the time goes by, I'm much more interested now in this augmented reality. Virtual reality was always discarding the real for just an artistic world. And there we really have the possibility to mix the real with the artificial world. And so I hope it goes on. The whole performances started at outside in Bauhaus Dessau. We had 3 different places where we showed the performance. It was at Dessau, in Berlin, in the museum, the Georg Kolbe Museum, and in the state representation of Sachsen-Anhalt in Brussels. And I start now a little bit with the technique we used. So the whole project was a bet in the future. So 4 years ago, we said, okay, we have this concept and we tried to develop something new, but the technique was not so far and we didn't really know what's coming at when we applied for the money. And so we were really lucky that just in this moment, this new technology from Magic Leap came out. It's a product it's the biggest American startup. They raised 2.9 billion for this glasses. In my estimation, the expectations for a new product were never so high than in these glasses. So it was an amazingly hype about them. And what came out afterwards is that it was hyped so much and the expectations were so high that it fell very much down. And now the whole company is near bankruptcy. So that's the whole development often goes in waves up and down. So there you can see the glasses now. And there's a computer related to the glasses where the software is running. And you have a control panel where you can move through the glasses. So, and the interesting thing, there's a whole software were developed for a special AR software called Lumen OS, where the glasses are running. There are also other glasses, but they were the most interesting ones at that time. So the interesting thing is this was the group, Patrick, who developed this production, and they had to wear the glasses during the production, but not during the show. And yeah, perhaps we go further. We needed a logistic for the glasses, how to get the audience to the glasses and to have numbers. We had to measure the eyes and prepare the glasses with the right dioptrine for people who wear normal glasses. And yeah, that's how it looked like. And we had a big team who were also starting the glasses. So it was a really big production in the background. And we had a big introduction in the beginning, what to do with the production, what to do with the glasses, how to use the certain elements. And the really interesting thing was that because we're coming from the opera area, we had a sometimes very mixed audience, often also a little bit older than younger, and it worked very well for them. So we had people which were 80 years old and didn't have any technological knowledge, and they used the technology just like nothing was no problem. They didn't have a mobile phone, but they just tried it and had their fun with it. And there are also people which came from the technology. They are so much into working with this stuff that they mix up the glasses and they made more problems in the show than people who were open to try out something new. So you also want to know what's really happened in the glass. And that's one of the main problems with all the technologies in 3D. You cannot really show it on a computer, on 2D. So here you can see the people. We had interactive parts where they could throw objects on the actors on stage. We had, I mean, I could talk a lot about what really was the aim, which the story we told. We talked about reduction and abstraction, Matznatz-Nahn and furniture, idealism and ideology, and the history of the Bauhaus from the esoteric to the pure materialism. I don't talk a lot about this because the time is not enough for this. There you can see we had a lot of people in the background with the t-shirts with Navigator. They were helping the people putting on the glasses if they had problems, and was for a lot of people an amazing experience. They never had it before like this. I go through the pictures that you get a little bit of an inspiration. And later on, we jump into the glasses. This is with an iPhone made into the glasses. And there you can see we worked with 3D video and or with stereo video, making a dialogue between a real and a virtual person. And now I make a very small video, small one. There you can see how the actors were playing with objects which were not on stage. So they rehearsed it with the glasses, and then they were playing with the object, the virtual object, even if they couldn't see it. Well, I go further. Yeah, we had a lot of different objects in this virtual world, which were mixing between the reality. To see it a little bit better, I show now a little film. I hope you can start it. Is it running? Yeah. So we go on, I hope, with there you can see a little bit how difficult it was for the actors. There you can see one actor moving under a virtual object. And if you go further, then you can see a little bit, this was the 3D representation of the 3D object. And you see a rectangular wall in there. And there you can see this wall in the virtual, and she was diving under this wall. So there you can see, if you go back, this is the wall. It's difficult to describe really how it works. And the whole production took place, started in September 2019. And we had about 1,600 people in the audience and 70 performances. This was really a very major power action for all the actors to make so many performances, often 3 performances a day. And we're hoping that we show the production in September this year, if Corona allows us, in Berlin again. There are a lot of things I can explain how we did it. Perhaps one little teaser, we have to place the virtual objects in the space. So we are it's called image targets, and the people had to log into the image targets. So you can see this little picture on the side. And when the people were looking at them, all the virtual objects were placed relatively to these images in space.
Oliver, I suggest we keep some for the questions and answers later, because we're running out of time.
So, and this is the ending. So I'm finished with the presentation. And thank you very much.
Well, thank you very much, and it must be very good to have a world's first or Europe's first, and thank you for deconstructing and sharing the production method and some of the conventions you took in making it. And I think I owe Sarah an apology. Sarah, I was told by the team behind the screens that you kept on time, and it was my bad timing. So apology, you were right, I was wrong.
No worries.
I'm sorry for that. Let's move on our presentation to poetry this time, and we'll have...
Marian, would you switch on your camera? We can't see you.
Oh, I beg your pardon. Entschuldigung bitte. Is it all right now?
Looks so much better.
I'm sorry for that. I got confused in interventions here. So we're now welcoming Lennart Larsen, Gregor Landehauf, who are going to talk about poetic immersion in VR. Their audiovisual art installation mainly focus on possibilities for poetic experiences. They strive to use technologies and media that are best suited to achieve this goal, giving the audience a unique and engaging impression. In this short presentation, they will illustrate two approaches to creating audiovisual poetry in VR, and I leave it to them to tell us which they are. Welcome, and over to you.
Well, hello. Thank you everybody for the invitation, and I'm really happy to talk a little bit about our work. So it's only me, Gregor, not Leonard is not here. So yeah, my name is Gregor Landehauf. I'm one half of an artist duo. We call ourselves Depart. We are based in Vienna. And what we have been doing for the last about 20 years is focusing on audiovisual installations, web art, or also interactive theater pieces. What you can see here is some small things that we have done in the past. So these two are more web-based. These are site-specific installations with audio-visual, like with projection, and this was a very large piece. So as you can see, we have mostly focused on building our own worlds, and what we very early on connected on was poetry. So poetry, a lot about wordplay, and our shared interest in poetry led us to trying to build these worlds where people would be immersed in and have unique experiences, which kind of is in line with what Catherine already said at the beginning, and a lot of what I'm going to talk about now has already been said, so I can be very brief on this. Yeah, so the mood machine aspect is really something that we concentrate on a lot. We called it, when we started out doing flash movies, we called it impressure. So what we're trying to do, and we're still trying to do, is rather overpowering the audience with sensory things that we can provide to give them the possibility to turn off the reception, the active reception, and transfer into a more childlike state, which is, of course, added a lot through the VR technology, which we were happy to use when we first came across seeing advancing, actually, because I remember the first time trying an Oculus Rift, which was kind of impressive. It was one of those roller coaster things, and I really felt the bodily sensation so much that we were saying, okay, we can use this for our own work now. And yeah, we really really saw the possibility now to do it because the quality of image with the new Vive that we were using was already where we would say, okay, it's enough to give an illusion that is kind of believable. So what you see here is also some aspects of an earlier work, and what I want to talk about here is as Sarah also was referring to, the liminality. So we're really piercing membranes here, membranes of perception. And when we were asked to do a piece for an exhibition which was centered around the topic of Alice in Wonderland, as you can see here, we were really glad because, of course, it is the topic that is kind of an allegory for the whole thing in itself. Going down this rabbit hole, and what we did is we wanted to give people this threshold, this liminal experience, and so we put them in front of this kind of entrance portal featuring a mirror. So they would see themselves in a mirror first, put on the VR headset, and then they saw themselves on the right side. You see already the VR. They saw themselves in the actual space in the mirror again. So we had this entrance point for them. What we were also focusing on in this case was the possibilities of giving a room some agency, because you have some examples here from literature and movies as well, where rooms and the space around the actual protagonists is really something that helps propel the story, or even has a protagonist aspect of themselves. As another aspect here that you see is rooms can be something that shows several things in time happening at once, and what Leah was doing here was like getting all the actors out. So what we are left with is empty spaces that still have the possibility to be surreal, which is something very important for us as well. So we're not trying to give real real spaces, but more spaces or surreal experience that you cannot have in real life, of course. So what we came up with is this concept of what we call architecture. So you were thrown into this room, which would change around you all the time. What we are also very much focusing on is the actual VR technology. So everything in our VR installations is virtual reality, as it was like kind of thought in the beginning of, and it's not 360 video, it's real-time generated 3D graphics that actually give you the possibility to experience a space and a room while you can move around in it, and while you're looking around, there are also there are objects appearing that you can direct via your gaze. We also developed this kind of, we call the Lacuna wall system. The piece is called the Lacuna Shift. So it's actually, the name says everything already. It's a gap in your, where you are in, a gap in time and space, and this is changing around you all the time. As you all know, it's really hard to document a real VR experience. I would really like to refer to our homepage. I'm just gonna try to give you a short, a very, very short experience here now. So you see what happens after people get in, and when they look around, they encounter objects which talk to them. I'm not going to go into the audio detail so much here. And what we actually do is we change the scenery around you while you are looking around. So we have the crossover between these two things that also Catherine was mentioning. We have a mental immersion and we have a spatial immersion. So, and the spatial immersion changes all the time, but you are still able to move inside the space. And also what we found is we got rid of the controllers, for example, because we wanted to have people a very short learning curve. So what they do is actually they move through the space via their gaze, and the gaze is controlling objects, which gives them a very quick access to this world. So yeah, I really want to encourage you to look at the videos on Vimeo through our website. And going back to this here. Okay, so yeah, this is just a short example of what our poetic inspiration is sometimes. So we have here, of course, the camera obscura thing. What you see on here is a kanji that's actually the word for door, but it depicts a window and the moon inside the frame of the door. And so the moon inside a room is, of course, something that's very surreal as well. So this is yeah, that's the Lacuna Shift, which was featured in a lot of festival places. What in this case we only showed this portal and the goggles. Yeah, as I said, it's very important for us to give more than just VR headset lying around. So we always think about this aspect of scenography as well. So in that case, it was this portal and what we encountered is, of course, you have people standing around asking, okay, what am I gonna see? So in the next piece, we were somehow always very reluctant because we wanted to have this moment of surprise. That's why we only presented the audio with the Lacuna Shifts. In the next piece, the Entropy Gardens, which I'm going to talk very briefly about now because my time is running out. You see on the left side here, it's yeah, it's about virtual horticulture. We were very much inspired by the concept of paradise, paradise is just a word for a garden in a very specific place, which got into religion, as you know. And the Entropy Gardens is as you see, it's just a spatio-temporal poem as we see it. It's a poetic organism. It's a whole system of generative structures that rely on similarities to nature, but also, of course, to the culture of horticulture. So all these, these. Sorry, I just got lost here. All these geometric things that figure into it, and there are artifacts while doing the actual gardening figure into it, and as well the allegory of tree structures that also represent language features into here. And because our mind thinks a lot in categories, and we try to overwhelm those categories until the mind goes like, okay, I don't understand any of this. I just want to experience, which is basically what this is all about. And I'm reaching 10 minutes in 20 seconds. So yeah, I just really want to encourage you to go to depart.at, our website, or look at the Vimeo videos, and you will see, and of course I will talk more about this in the upcoming work talk. Thank you so much, and see you later.
That was brilliant, Gregor. Thank you very much, and inspiring work yet again. And unfortunately, this is not the right medium to show the absolute great aesthetic value of the work. So we will go and try to experience it elsewhere and to get the full value that it has. In our next talk, we have Markus Schubert, who will give a brief introduction of the gaming platform Toto. He'll outline concepts, features, scenarios, and applications. In his talk, he'll give a broad overview of the possibilities of how Toto can help and be used to produce interdisciplinary interactive installations. And I'm very keen to hear what he means by interdisciplinary interactive installations, games, and performances. Markus, over to you. You have the floor now.
Yeah, hello and welcome to my presentation, and thanks for the invitation to speak at this conference. Today I want to talk about the Toto platform and why it can be the right tool for you to use and to realize your own ideas and projects. I will quickly share my screen. So, so today, if you want to build digitally enhanced theater plays containing user interaction and participation using digital interfaces, collecting data and so on, there are a lot of tasks that needs to be solved. Storing data, setting up an IT infrastructure, programming apps, designing and implementing a system which combines and controls all of these components. With Toto, we have built a solution which addresses this complexity. The general idea is to hide these technical aspects for the artist and provide an easy-to-use user interface in order to build your own applications. This can be a game theater play, an audio walk, an interactive installation in formats like this. There's no need for programming an app or for programming at all. You can focus on creating quality content and you don't need to bother about most of the technical aspects. If you want to get technical and get your hands dirty and write code or integrate your own already existing hardware and software solutions, this is possible too. In fact, Toto was designed with this in mind to be interoperable and extendable. There are various interfaces and APIs available. On the slide, you can see the main components of the Toto platform. In the middle, there is a game engine. It consists of several services and databases running on servers in the internet. It is the heart of the Toto platform. As an artist or game designer, you use the Toto CMS. It is a browser-based content management system where you can manage all your content, create complex nonlinear storylines, add text, embed images, video and audio, programming and modeling interactions, everything that makes up your game. On the right, you can see a screenshot of our app Toto Go. It's available for free for iOS and Android. And the app is used by your users, the audience, the players, however you name it. It can also be branded specific to your piece. I will show some examples later in the talk. The engine also provides an IoT-like service, which is used to connect real-world objects with the game engine. We call these Toto objects. They are little devices, things, or software programs that can be triggered by the game engine in an automated fashion. Imagine a simple light bulb, an electrical fan, a printer, or a whole light installation. There are a couple of Toto objects available. If you want to integrate your own already existing components, being it software or hardware, this is easily doable by using Toto APIs Toto provides. In a Toto-based piece, everything is built around the storyline. It consists of elements that are connected to one another to build non-linear graph. As you can see in the slide, a storyline can have multiple endings and the user can take different routes to these endings. This storyline here on the slide is very simple. In a real production, you probably have a lot more. We have worked with artists who have created several hundreds of elements for their installation. You can see these elements have different icons. They are representing different types of elements which implement different game mechanics and logic. The elements and their connections are the building blocks of a Toto game. Toto can be seen as a toolbox where you can pick and connect these elements to build arbitrary complex storylines and user interaction scenarios. There are notification-like elements, reversible and irreversible choices, tasks with different types of solutions, and also elements that you can program yourself using JavaScript to build your own logic and data structures. When a user progresses through a storyline, there are a lot of events happening, like a user made a decision or a user accomplished a certain task. You can use these events to trigger Toto objects to create real-world feedback. Imagine a player in front of a door of an abandoned house in a city. After scanning a QR code, the door opens, the light inside the room turns on, and the music starts playing. Here I want to outline some of the main features of the Toto platform. I already talked about nonlinear storylines and Toto objects. You can collect and automatically reintegrate user-generated content, change the text, content into your game and make it available to other players. Right now, this can be messages and photos. Toto supports real-time updates. You can update your content, change the text, upload a new video or image, and have it available in the app for your users within seconds. Toto scripting engine enables you to design your own custom game mechanics. For instance, Toto has a simple scoring system already built in, but if you want to enrich the user experience by having a more elaborate character sheet, let's say the player has mana, health, and age, Toto gives you the possibility to define properties like that and to create scripts for modifying the values of these properties individually for each player. Now let's move on and talk about what can be built with Toto. There are location-based games like scavenger hunts through the city. You can build interactive game theater plays and performances. You can create audio walks, or you can combine all of them to experiment with new digital formats and realize your own ideas. As I said earlier, Toto is a toolbox, and you can choose the components you need in order to achieve what you want. Now I want to show some projects where Toto has been used. They are from the last 3 years, and they are more complex theater plays. Here I want to emphasize, even though in the following examples, I myself or we as a company were involved in these productions in some way, this is not a necessity. The idea is that you can use Toto all by yourself if you want to. Customer Zombification is a recent theater play by the director Rolf Kasteiner at Theater Vorpommern in Greifswald. It is an online format which is streamed via YouTube and where the audience uses the Toto app to interact with the actress via messages and influences the story and the ending via a voting mechanism. Kein Kläger is an interactive theater game with live acts in the urban space of Munich by author and director Christiane Mudra. For this piece, we have built a branded version of the Toto app. It was used by the audience to provide additional information, questions, puzzles, and help while attending the live acts in different locations. For example, when the audience needed to use public transport to go from one location to the next, they could watch a video or doing a poll. No Work and All Play is a game theater installation by Prinzip Gonzo at Staatstheater Nürnberg. Here we have built a branded app and even an offline version of our platform, and also the complete network installation and some custom Toto objects. On the right, you can see a screenshot of the branded app that we have built for this production. Der Spalt is a mixed reality game by Christiane Hütter and Sebastian Quack at Grillo Theater Essen that was played over the course of 3 weeks by more than 1,000 people. This is almost the end, and I briefly want to give an overview of what we offer as a company. You can just purchase a usage license of the Toto platform and start building whatever you want. We do consulting, providing our expertise for technical aspects, concepting and game design. We give workshops where you can learn how to use the platform. We build branded apps. As you could see previously, a branded app has its own name, logo, and custom design, and we can also implement custom functionality. And next to our already existing set of Toto objects, we can also build new ones that fit your specific use case. Thank you very much for your attention. I'm looking forward to answer your question in a working session later today. I want to also encourage you to have a look at our website, Toto.io, where you can find more information, inspiration, and more examples of what is possible with Toto. You can follow us on Twitter or Instagram. Thank you very much. And back to you, Marianne.
Well, thank you very much, Marcus. I think it's an unanimously accepted fact that we still lack the production tools to put them in the hands of the creatives and allow them direct access to kind of align from brain to production. And what you do is amazing, and actually I can't wait to experiment with Teatro. I will have a go myself very soon. So thank you very much. Very inspiring. Very inspiring.
Thank you very much.
Probably we're going to overrun by a few minutes, but we've reached the point where we have our last talk, who is going to be given by Marcel Karnapke, and where he's talking about the technical and artistic approach that himself and his company have taken to realize 3 entirely different online festivals, and how they found, and that is very enticing now, a place between 2D and 3D that can inspire the imagination and help us connect and relate to each other better online. Marcel, over to you, the last talk of this series.
Thank you very much for having me. So maybe before I start and we have a look at what we've built, I want to stress that we as Cyberräuber are actually very much interested in the central core of everything, and it's for us human beings. So whilst we work with laser scanning and artificial intelligence and a lot of other fun toys and tools that are very high tech, all we do is mainly try to focus on a clever way to design applications, theater pieces that bring at the core people together, no matter how young or old they are in the end, and make technology accessible. And that's also been one of the core driving factors of the things that we did for these festivals. So when the pandemic started and it hit us all, obviously theaters have been closed, and the Deutsche Theater has a very amazing festival called Radar Ost, and they do it annually. And this time they were discussing, can we still do it? Are there other options? And they came to us and we brainstormed. And it's quite a funny story, because most people thought, how could we realize some kind of spatial event online that would be driven by websites, that would be driven by web technologies? And the first thought was that we would have like a real 3D environment where people would run around and could interact with each other, quite like a video game. But when you think about this, the threshold and the learning curve for many, many people is very high. Also, the threshold for the required technologies and so on and so forth is very high. So in the end, what we came up with is technology that we've already used. And we thought about if we could kind of like hack this technology in a way to create a website that would go beyond the classical, have a text here, click a button there, and scroll down and up. And maybe we thought we should like reutilize a tool that we use most of the times when we go to theaters and just try to map out the stage, map out the audience. And for this, we use 360 cameras. And we just take pictures of that, take it back to our laboratory, and then we have a look at how we could build this. And we were wondering, would it be possible to use one of the greatest computers ever made, the human brain, and the fantasy of human beings, and also their memories of places, to get them back into these worlds? And let me just start one of the clips in the background. I might also hide myself for a second here so that you can see what I'm showing. So what we did is we didn't only capture spaces and places of the Deutsche Theater, but we also said we should like transform them, because all we have are these memories of these spaces and places. And if we go back there, obviously we could have taken the 360 images, but from an artist's perspective, it's way more interesting to let them mutate, to let them grow and change in ways so that people are actually keen on something that we think is very crucial to this de facto kind of immersive reality, virtual reality maybe even, and that's the spirit of exploration. People want to go places, people want to see new things, and the most beautiful thing is if you have it in a way that you know it, but it has been strangely altered in a way. It's now in kind of a new dimension. And so this is what we did for this festival. We also included, as you've seen, a global chat that would always accompany you. So wherever you go, you would have a persona, you could interact with other people, you could give people tips. And the most important thing is we had live streams in here, like premieres. And these live streams, they were now not situated in just a basic list on a website, but you could go to an auditorium, you could go to the theater and open the stream in there. It might sound like just a little bit of thing, but in your mind's eye, in your perception, it's quite a different thing to do this on a flat filed website in comparison to this 360 environment, because it still works in a way in your mind's eye. So this was like the first endeavor that we took with this approach, and we built like an entire web application out of this, which means it worked on tablets as well, on mobile phones as well, on the computer, which is very important to us because we want people to have access from all of these devices. Actually, when you have touch, it's the most beautiful version because you can just look around by touching, which is very nice. And you also had this social aspect of the chat where you could talk to each other. And we actually took this a step further when the European Theatre Convention asked us, is it possible to have the same thing with the environment that we had also chosen for the conference, but could we make it even more interactive? Could we, for example, integrate certain Zoom sessions into this? So could we have like meetings in these spaces, because that's what you would naturally do. You would meet at that place, you could talk to people, you could have a coffee, and so on and so forth. So what we had to do here is we had to develop something that could uniquely identify people. So we had to generate like a user control system, or better to say a ticketing system. So people here, when they logged onto the website identified them, so they could all essentially be themselves. They had the logos of their companies. And the special thing in here is you still have this thing, you have the transformation of this kind of dreamlike environment. You also have the ability to jump into Zoom from here to attend these meetings because there are no live streams. And you had the other opportunity to use like web-based RTC conferencing, which means you could just talk and connect to people that were on the website, which is a very crucial point because now you don't need another application. You could have just jumped in and you could have a look at the program. So it's also about unification. You have everything packaged into one thing, and people can even talk to each other with the chat and ask people, is the Zoom happening right now, and so on and so forth. Because the huge problem, as you can see here, Björn has just connected to the video chat, and if people would join in, you could instantaneously talk to these people. And that's, I think, is very important, that you don't only have these rooms, but these rooms have options and capabilities to show you things and to link people up. And I think that's kind of a strong suit. And whilst we have used for the Deutsche Theater and this thing here, technologies of artificial intelligence, they're called style transfer, and we adapted them so we could change the 360s. For the Tush Festival that has actually just wrapped up last week, we did something entirely different. We actually invited the children to use our 360 images that we then transformed with the help of artificial intelligence into just sketches, because I think children and maybe even everybody loves to color in things. And we then asked them, these children, to basically just put in their own imaginations in these rooms. And so they transformed the theater that they knew into something entirely different, even beginning from like the outside, which is also kind of important because our spatial memory works with that. You remember entering the theater, going to the place where you kind of like leave your clothes and then go into the theater. So what they did here, they just used colored pencils essentially and recolored these 360s, and we built a workflow where we could then re-import these places, and we also added in all of the pieces that they created, all of the little videos and all of their performances. And what we also did is we even let these images evolve. Each day we had per room, the room would be the same, but they would all look different each and every day, because the pupils were so happy to just color in things and continue coloring in things and meeting together and having this kind of feeling. In Germany, we call it Schnitzeljagd. I think it's just looking for clues and little snippets. So if you give these rooms and spaces meaning by having things and objects placed there, it's even better, and people enjoy it very much. Oh, maybe I just need to disappear again, because here, as you can see, we even have very intricate drawings, very detailed little things. And we even got people who told us when they go back now to the tush and they look at the actually build structures, they would love to see them in these colors and this bright configuration. Reality is now in a way boring. But here's the kicker. When human beings remember spaces, they don't really care about if they're real or if they're not real. They care about the utility of the places. So they know the exits and the windows and things like that. So in the end, these pieces might still reside in the people as artificial memories in a way. So yeah, I think that's it. That's the thing about my talk. Thanks for your attention.
So thank you very much. Again, same accolades come to you. This is a lovely tool to be used by creatives and frame all sorts of experiences. So it's been inspiring and worthy of a final talk. To summarize the session, God, it's been a lot here. We saw quite a lot. We started with a framing talk by our keynote in audiences research, and then a great palette of projects and technologies. You now have the opportunity to go into breakout rooms and speak more with our speakers. And I think I will leave Johanna to explain the mechanics of that process.